can start, Dan.
And I'm going to call the meeting to order. So I got to click, got it. There we go. Thanks everybody for either dialing in or Bob, I guess thanks for being in the conference room.
Well, it's quieter here than it is at home.
No comment.
Thank you.
This is an active crowd this evening. My gosh.
We actually have never approved our November minutes. I believe that's a true statement. Because our December and January meetings were both curtailed. I think that's right. Is that right? Does anybody have a different recollection?
I think you're right, Jen.
Okay, so I did print them and read the notes, and they seem detailed and accurate. Any discussion on the minutes from November? Would someone like to make a motion to have them approved?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
I'll third.
Okay, and a third. All right, all in favor? And John, I can't see you and Jen, so a voice, and
Ruben
Ruben.
says aye.
Aye.
All right, and so that passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Max, for getting those out. Really appreciate it. And I think I really don't have a lot, but I felt one thing I'd like to do during the chair report is give the committee an update. It's probably most of you know, I'm on the board of directors for the Waldenboro Food Pantry. So that's another one of my passions. And so yesterday was, today was Food Pantry Day. And so I just wanted to kind of share some of the numbers because they're striking. We had 108 households come through the food pantry today for food.
Today?
They represent 272 individuals. We actually had 5 new households today for food. And interestingly, the makeup of those 272 individuals, 25% are children, 56% are adults, and 19% are seniors. So I thought I would share some of the really amazing work that the food pantry has been doing for the folks of Waldenboro, Bremen, and Noblesboro, the 3 towns all share in the Waldenboro food pantry. And then since we broadcast this, I feel like I'm obligated to make a pitch. Max, as you know, the food pantry has been after getting a van, a cargo van for delivery of food, and we've tried many avenues to raise funds, including grants, and we've been unsuccessful in virtually every grant that we've gone after for various reasons. So the fundraising committee for the food pantry actually decided to put out an appeal letter. And we did that. And I'm really unbelievably pleased to say we have raised over $30,000 in individual donations and business.
Wow.
Our goal is 50, so we got a ways to go. And we are, there is a grant that we're hopeful that we'll be in line for probably early this month, which may make up the difference or get us, at least get us very close. So we're hopeful about that. So that's just kind of a quick update on the food pantry and where we're at. But the people of Waldenboro have been amazingly supportive of our capital project to raise funds for a cargo van. So so that's that. Any questions about the food pantry and what's been going on?
Bob's got one.
Yeah, Bob.
Jan, the fundraising, was it directed to all of the towns that participate or just to Waldenboro?
It was actually directed to all the towns. However, the Nobleboro and Bremen folks, what we didn't do a mass mailing. What we did is we sent individual cards and letters to folks who have donated in the past. For Waldenboro, it was different. In Waldenboro, we actually put one in every mailbox.
Were the people who came into the food bank, and you said that was all today, were those represented all three towns kind of proportionally, or?
The majority are obviously from Waldenboro. And we had, I actually have the number here. So we had, of the 5 new households, we had 2 from Bremen. And overall, we have 8 from Bremen and 3 from Nobleboro. So of the 108, 11 are from the other towns.
Okay. That's really good.
It's really good. And it's, boy, I'll tell you, it's really an amazing operation there. And they do terrific work, really do.
I just want to say, I think it's great that you're taking a regional approach. To me, that's the wave of the future for most of the things that we get done around here. We do it with EMS, we do it with fire, we do it with a food pantry. And there'll be more as we go along. So that's great.
Yeah. George,
Well done.
George, we do it twice a month, by the way. So, so these, so we try to get enough food to the households, so it kind of gets them through the month. They may end up a little short, but twice a month seems like the right amount.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Max, I think I'm going to hand it over to you now. I know you've been out of commission a little bit, but wondering if maybe you could give us a town update.
Town update. Town update. Bids for 80 Gray and Friendship Street School reuses have closed. I don't believe we got anything for 80 Gray, and we got one proposal for Friendship Street School. The select board didn't discuss it at the previous meeting just because Julie wanted to be very nice and let me take some time to look at it first before the select board starts making a decision on it. The proposal is it's from my recollection, residential focused, and I've only skimmed it so far. It seems very interesting, and I just need to look a bit more into it before I want to say too much on it.
With respect to AD Gray, where are we on that? Last I heard, they don't want it because the bricks are going to fall off. But
Right.
whatever happened since then?
Well, that's why we did the proposal to see if someone wanted 80 Gray, to see if either an Elon Musk fellow will show up and magically save the building with his bottomless pockets full of wealth, or if someone's going to show up and say, well, if you're going to tear it down, let me at least put this on the site instead.
They could put it into orbit.
But who knows? We were open to all bids at that point, but we didn't get anything back for 80 Gray. We put out a grant to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for Brownfield Cleanup, just because the site did have some contaminant materials on there, which was, back when the school thought asbestos and lead was safe to use. And we haven't heard back from that grant. We should hear back by the spring to see if it will pay a good chunk of the cost for the tear down and cleanup of the site.
So there was still AD Gray, there was still asbestos in the structure as we speak, or there is still?
They noticed 2 things. There was lead in some of the little crevices that were inside the building. And then the asbestos was more of the rainwater fall off that was around the side of the building, which wasn't actually as bad as it sounds. But that was through the hazardous review we did back in 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Has Volunteers of America said anything since our last conversation with them?
I have not spoken to Volunteers of America too much. However, I think with volunteers, they didn't want to put in a bid just to see if there was actual interest. You know, with what happened recently, I don't think they wanted to be seen as a competitor. I think they wanted to be seen as someone who wanted to really be in the community because we wanted them. So I don't know if they're still interested. I also think a part of it is they were on a tight deadline and we kind of missed that now with them. So it might be some renewed talks to prepare for next year. Because I know with volunteers, theirs was going to tear down the building.
Right.
But no, I don't have too much with 80 Gray. And Friendship School, as I say, we'll probably know more about it at the select board meeting next Tuesday. Other than that, Julie is still talking with Lincoln Health, Maine Health on a new potential site for the medical arts building. There are a few different spots in town we're looking at. There's one we might have a very good idea on that could be a nice benefit for the town. But, you know, it's speculation at this point. I don't want to say anything because I don't want people to jump on it, assuming it's all definitive at this point. Other town updates. I'm back after 6 weeks.
Yay!
Good to have you back.
Good to have you back, Max.
We'll see how long I last this time. Ice rink is out outside. People still want to go visit that. And I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I'll probably think of something later on, but those are the big pieces of news, unless someone has a question.
Are there any?
One quick question. Have we considered AD Gray as, you know, if we tear that site, if we tear the building down, is that a good site for the future emergency care facility?
Emergency care.
Medical arts building.
The
The medical arts building. Yeah, that could be a spot.
I think they originally were saying they wanted it on Route 1 or very near Route 1 a long time ago.
Well, that's why I say they're looking at various spots, because when I did ask what they're looking for, they said a lot of parking in an area where we could probably get 20 cars in an hour in and out with no issue. Or I might have that number wrong, but they didn't want to cause a traffic jam. And with some of the bigger complaints being for the housing that people were concerned about traffic, you know, we don't know if that's going to be a good spot or not. But
Didn't that used to be a high school?
It used to be a high school, and before that, it was a church. No, but that's why I say we're looking at all spots, and that is a potential site, but we wanted to go through that RFP process to see if anyone had any thoughts.
Okay. So does anybody have questions for Max on any of that?
Have a
Not
little
on-
bit of clarification from the Lincoln Health perspective on that, if you will. I know
Yeah,
that
please, John.
because of everything that's been going on with COVID, a lot of the capital budget with Maine Health and capital expenditures have been cut way back. I don't know whether that will have an impact on this project or not. We're starting to work on capital budgets for next year right now. But you know, that's something else that's in the air that we hope to have resolved, where likely the folks at Penn Bay are part of this project as well. So there's a larger pool of people contributing to it from a Maine Health perspective. Hopefully that'll give us a little bit more push, but you know, depending on what the capital expenditure budgets look like, that could or could not have an impact on timing.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. Ruben, did I read that you might have to leave early?
No, I wasn't sure if I could get back on time, but I'm here and I'm here for the whole thing.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right.
All right. So, hey, John, since we had you on anyways, why don't you give us a quick update on COVID-19?
Well, this is the first time in a long time that I'm updating with some good news. I know that Moderna on Monday came off emergency use authorization. So now, hopefully, all of those folks who were not getting vaccinated because it was emergency use approved, now it's been fully approved by the FDA. So hopefully, people will consider getting their vaccine. This week was the first week in 5 weeks that we've seen a drop in some of our numbers. Our testing dropped, our positives dropped, and our percentage of positives dropped by about 8%, which is a really significant drop. We're still much higher than we'd like to be at about 16.5% of the cases that came through were positive. But it was up in the 23-24% area the last 2 or 3 weeks. It was really quite the surge. There seems to be some encouragement that perhaps the Omicron spike here in Maine is dissipating. Numbers across our Maine health system look better than they have for a while. There still is a challenge, however, in our hospitals and healthcare settings because of the hospitals being full with patients. A lot of the surgeries, you hate to call them elective, but I guess they're described as non-urgent. They're urgent to the person who needs to have their knee replaced for sure, or something like that. But if we don't have a bed for that person, we're having to postpone and reschedule their surgery. And that's been a significant problem. Some of the hospitals across the state have just dropped those surgeries altogether. We've been trying to make them mesh with what's available for our available beds. But we've been very, very full, backed up in the emergency room. We have, I think today we had 13 patients who are considered to be boarders or swing patients. So these are people who are staying in the ED or staying in hospital beds because they need to be somewhere else and there's nowhere to put them. They're behavioral health patients, they're patients that need different types of care that we don't provide. And beds are full all across the state. So we as a system, just for background, we meet as a system every day on something called a capacity call, and we find out who might have beds where. And if we can get somebody a service, even if it's as far away as, our hospital in North Conway, New Hampshire, if they want to go and there's capacity for them to take them, we may send them there. It's just trying to match up what people need with available beds. So that's been a real challenge for us. And I think we'll be playing catch up with that as the numbers drop. But it is good news. I mean, it's, obviously with COVID, you always share good news with a disclaimer. But you just never know what's going to happen with this thing. But this week was a very good week for us, and we're hoping that the pattern continues.
Quick question. How does tracking or statistics or numbers that you come up with, how does that connect with people who have a positive or negative home test? I think there's a lot of home tests that are positive that people just stay home, but you probably never hear about.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of those people will report that to their primary care doctor and others if they have a primary care doctor. The at-home tests like Binex now are very good at diagnosing a positive. They're better than we originally thought. So I think it's a safe bet. If somebody has test positive at home, they should begin the quarantine process and not even bother getting a confirmatory test. We're not doing confirmatory tests now because we simply don't have the capacity to do so. So
with respect to the statistics and the trends and the graphs, they just kind of go on without knowing what's happening at home?
If people aren't sharing the information, how would we know? I mean,
that's my question. I mean, I hate to even use this expression, but it certainly is true that the more tests you do, the more you find out you're positive. But it sounds like you don't necessarily find out they're positive unless it gets reported to a doctor.
Yeah, our experience has been if people have symptoms, they want to be tested. We've tested not counting the Booth Bay Clinic, we've tested 26,000 people. We've done 26,000 tests.
So people who
our-
take home tests, are you suggesting that they often or usually will get it followed up with a doctor and that will reach your system?
Depends on typically they contact their primary care doctor, but it depends on what that doctor does with that information.
Okay,
To be honest with you.
thanks.
I don't know the answer to that, George. I do know, however, since this is being recorded, it's really important to plug the boosters. So in the state of Maine right now, the Maine CDC considers being fully vaccinated, having your either one shot of the J&J vaccine or the 2 shots of the others. The reality is that third shot or that booster shot is being proven to be incredibly effective at reducing illness, reducing transmission of COVID-19, and keeping people out of the hospital. Dora Mills, who's the Chief Health Improvement Officer in Health, had some information out there yesterday that shows, reduced hospitalizations, reduced infection of people who have the booster shot, and just a very small sample set of. So what we do is 1 day a week, we profile the day and look at the percentage of people who test positive who haven't been vaccinated, those who have completed the 2 doses or the 1 dose of J&J, and those who've done that plus the booster. The boosters, the people who've done that with the boosters, they're running about 11% of all the positive cases. So 1 out of every 10 positive cases is somebody who's boosted. Take it the other way, 90% of those who have been boosted aren't testing positive. So, the booster seems to be a big piece in terms of getting out of this. We run a walk-in clinic at Lincoln Health on the campus in the Watson Center. We also have appointments available, and we're not busy. We really are not seeing the number of people coming in for the boosters that we really would like to see. I think Maine is about 34% of Maine is vaccinated and boosted, and that puts us, our state, that's in the United States, 34% in the United States, and that makes us equivalent to Serbia. And so we can, as a country and as a state and locally, we can do better. And it really is, imperative for people who really want to protect themselves to get that booster.
John, one other important statistic is you talked about testing positive, but folks that have had the booster, what percentage who do test positive end up in the hospital?
Next to none, Jan, next to none. It's a
So that's the message. That's the important message.
Yeah, it is. There's nothing more than you can do for yourself than to get that booster and get fully vaccinated. It's the best you can do for yourself and for all those people who are around you.
Bob has a question.
John?
Yes, go ahead.
I have a couple, 3 things to ask about. One is more of a statement, and that is that the FDA has now approved Moderna's vaccine in accordance with its normal procedure. It's no longer an emergency vaccine. It is an approved vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
The second point, it's really a question, and that is some countries are now asking people to get a second booster. Have you heard anything about that here? And if you have, what's the timing on that? I think a lot of people got boosted back in September and October. And the third is that are most of the people who are going into hospitals still in the unvaccinated category?
So I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, but I'll tell you what I do know. I haven't heard anything at all about a second booster run. So as far as I'm concerned, that would be new information to me. In terms of hospitalization, people who are not fully vaccinated and boosted are going into the hospital more. They're still testing positive at a higher rate than those who are boosted. However, a lot of people who have gotten the 2 doses are testing positive for the Omicron. There's 2 reasons for that, really, is we have a lot of people in Lincoln County and close by who have done a good job at getting those first 2 shots of the J&J. So as that number grows, the number of people who are vaccinated who test positive with something like Omicron are only going to rise because there's less of a pool to pull from. But, you know, unequivocally, those folks are typically not ending up in the hospital very, very much. It's mostly, most of the hospitalized are unvaccinated or under vaccinated.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John.
My pleasure.
So Max, are you in a position where we could talk about the project that we discussed back in November?
Yeah, I don't know how much was said and done before all that happened, but I'm gonna share the screen just so people see the place. I got some news, that's for sure. Oops. So I assume everyone can see it.
Ooh.
That's my map. I'm gonna do that. You know what, I'm gonna do this. So this is the lot that we were looking at and focusing on. This is the 70 acres. The select board did approve the engineering study with Gartley and Dorsey, and Gartley and Dorsey was able to go out and examine the area before it got bad. This is where it gets a bit unfortunate. So what happened was about from what I thought was just a strip of wetland that went right about here.
Yep.
Actually goes from all of here to all of there. So all of this is undevelopable wetlands with the exclusion of like 2 little bubbles right on Route 1. And that is 23 acres.
What was the total again, Max?
All of this was about 23 acres.
No, what was the total project originally?
The original project would have had, I mean, there was a road that would have cut through here,
Right.
but the original project would have given us, and I'm gonna guesstimate how much the
Yeah.
wetland.
That's fine.
The original project was gonna give us about 30 acres. Take out the
Wow.
wetlands and the thing. So we've kind of lost a very sizable amount. I did some rough calculations. Our whole project area would essentially have to go from here to here. And then take out the service road off and take out the road, obviously. We're only working with less than 25 acres at that point. Because we'd have to get the road through here, well, the road's through here, and then there was a little bit of ledge right around here that's not going to be able to be worked on. So, and then all over here, Gartley and Dorsey hasn't even looked at it, but they said they see similar symptoms for again, undevelopable wetlands. So, yeah, that was not the best news to come back to.
Are these wetlands because of springs, or, I mean, I've had an area where somebody drove a skidder across the side of a hill, so it made puddles. And because it made puddles, it got classified as a wetland. Is this any way we could trade land or any way to get this back into use?
Well, that's the discussion for the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. We've had this similar talk actually when we looked at the Miller ball fields, because that area is in significant wetlands. This whole area, we would need to see if there's significant wetlands initially. And even then, if we can work with it so that we could develop it as long as we have an area we could preserve. But the town doesn't have that many options for an empty lot that's ready to be purchased and is in the threat of being developed. And we would need something even larger than the area we'd be developing right here. Now,
Max,
fortunately,
doesn't it have to be connected to a pond or a river to
What
be
do you mean?
significant? The wetlands, doesn't it?
no, sometimes it's a habitat that's there, and sometimes it's a drainage and soil issue. Again, I don't know if these are significant wetlands. However, over here is a resource protection area. So I would imagine the reason why all of this, and even across the road here is a wetland as well. So I imagine it's all sort of connected to this, where it's just the higher up area that just slowly feeds into this. That's just my thought.
It's all very high ground. It's really, well, anyway.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah, that's a lot of trees for wetlands, but
well, it's more on the inside. And again, it's the soil. The soil just absorbs it a lot better than most areas. And so it's just very soft, I suppose, for development. Now,
all right.
Now, when I did speak with the DEP very briefly on this matter, they said that even if there's significant wetlands, we could run the utilities through here and have a maintenance road that's actually an allowed exemption. We will have to pay a bit more of a fee just because we're going to go over, I think it was 4,300 square feet to get a road from here to here. Because we'd want a maybe 10-foot wide one to get one road, one vehicle in. So it would be that maintenance road. We'd have to have a local road that goes all the way down Kastner, all the way to this property. And then we'd have to make some little roads split here. So it's a lot more complicated than what I initially wished. And it's probably not something we could fit in by March.
Yeah.
Now, there is a bit more positive news I could do, but does anyone have any questions before I proceed with, before I move on from this bit?
Well, just if you're moving on to the other half of the triangle that they haven't looked at yet, I'd be curious.
No, as I said, they looked at it and
Am I looking
there's-
at a creek? Is that what that dark line is?
I have this.
Yeah, well, your
No,
mouse
no,
is
right through, right.
parallel to the orange line. Yeah.
Yeah.
This. Yeah, that's what they're thinking. Like looking at contour lines, soil, they're seeing some very similar setup here as I saw over here. So they're anticipating this is going to be a very similar setup at that point. So they stopped. They didn't want to run up our bill knowing that this project won't be able to do the full thing. So I'm talking to them a bit more and quickly talked to Julie before this meeting about future steps, which brings me to my salvaging / desperate move here. So the one thing we can do still is the first part where we could expand the water that's down here at the Main Street Old Route 1 intersection, and bring it all the way up to where our pump station currently is. By doing that, we'll have all the businesses in this little intersection serviced by public water. And then it may not be as large as the other property. If there's interest at this parcel, people would have to come through Washington Road. But this is a larger area that could also be developed and still be serviced by sewer and water.
Is that one owner?
This is all one owner, yes. And then,
I was looking at a PFAS, if that's how you say it, report in the paper the other day. And I think that right up above that clearing, I think is some farmland that has had something spread on it. I have no, off Han Road, I think. I can't really point from here, but
yeah,
I think there's some agricultural land there. Does that play into any of these plans at all?
They certainly could. Depending on what that report says, if it's talking about how the chemicals slowly have come down this way. and
Well, no,
could affect-
I think I didn't study it or look into it, but it sounded like there had been permitted spreading of sewage materials there, as many farms do and have done. So I don't know if they tested it and found them or just know that it's suspect because of what has been permitted and spread there.
Well, what could possibly happen is if if it all did get contained up here, I don't know where it is, and it did spread magically down this way, you could make the argument then that, here's all this commercial area that's going to be feeding and treating people on a larger scale, that if the wells are potentially contaminated, and thus you need the public water to be on a cleaner system. So that could be an impact, but that's something I don't know, and I'd have to do some research on it.
And I probably should have even said it because I have no idea if there's any actual problem there. It was
Well,
just
that's
in
been coming up.
paper.
So
That's been coming up in a lot of places. How do you get your well tested for that?
the main drinking water program would probably have something to offer.
Okay.
Main water do that?
Main water likely would not, because they're more focused on our town water.
Oh,
line.
really? Okay.
Well, we could talk to them about testing our main water line, but for an individual's private well, that's probably going to be more of a state main program. But yeah, that was the one thing I was talking about, and that might be something we can still see if Gartley and Dorsey's fine giving us just a very ballpark estimate of going from half a mile to go from Main Street all the way up to the pump station. And then that could potentially be our project. It would be a lot smaller. It wouldn't have as big of an impact, but it would still fully service that area.
Max, what about the other end of Atlantic Highway?
When you say other end, do you mean going to Damerscott?
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
I mean, there's some big parcels of land there.
There are big parcels also filled with wetlands, and these are very steep going up. The sewer would be no issue, but you have to then get the water up there somehow. The water line that we have over here, it's not going to service anyone other than maybe one restaurant. To try and get any water line to go up either of these hills would require maybe 1 or 2 pumps before you even get past an entire parcel, because of how steep those places are. So for all of those projects, it's something where we would really need to know that something's going to happen there, or some confidence from the private landowners that, if you get it up here, we'll do.
But if you look in terms of development, I mean, there's been some development heading in that direction with, the dollar store and some of the other things that are going on there.
Yeah,
It's just a question, if it made more
No.
sense at this end than the other end.
no, I agree. And the reason why we were looking at the other end was because the sewer and the water had already gone up the hill, essentially. Like it was
Yeah.
already outside of that corridor. And so it was going to be a lot easier to have it go on a far flatter piece of land. This, on the other hand, it's, how much is it? It's about from here up to here, where all the people are. That's maybe 1 mile going uphill. It wouldn't really make too much sense.
And there's virtually no water discharge there on that hill. No sewer, no need for sewers.
Right. And as I say, if another dollar store looked at these parcels and said, hey, we'll put our building there, but we need to know sewer and water is going to come up here, then we can start talking of a project. But as it stands now, they're undeveloped. Some of them don't even have a lot of development capabilities. And the Department of Transportation is kind of scared to see something on one of these hills end up being developed and having an entrance, because then they have to have an entrance. Especially when the site distance isn't the best for some of these spots. So my project kind of faded a bit, but I am going to try and see if we can get this water line extension, because that would still be a very good use. And that would just be a phase 1. And if we can make this work in the future, that would be a phase 2 where we don't even have to worry about the water extension. because it would already have been addressed.
So that's
And,
gonna go up.
and the reality is, Max, that you needed to do that anyway, even with, even if something could be worked out with that other parcel, you still needed to do this.
Right, the EDA project was going to go in 2 phases regardless,
Yeah.
where
All right.
we'd have to spend 1 summer just to get the water up to the pump station. And well, I say 1 summer, but the water would have had to get up to the pump station first, and then we could build out from the pump station to that parcel, which could have meant 2 summers worth of work. So it just means we can try and get the water extension now, and then if this project is available in the future, then we can do it in the future. Or if we see another spot, we can try and expand the sewer and water too. You know, they're both going to be right there at the same spot. It'll be just as easy to have them move up Washington or this way to Route 1, or even down this way to complete a loop if we wanted to.
See, I'm still really fond of the idea of identifying a parcel, a property that could be a business park or, that kind of ties to it. I really like that idea, which is
Well,
what the original plan was going to do for us.
Right. Well, originally, one thing we did talk about earlier was John Fancy's idea of doing the gravity pump from,
Yeah.
I think it was here. It was like it was Depot Street intersecting with the railroad station. I can't remember exactly where it was. Down here, because this is where sewer and water serves. John Fancy's idea was to do a gravity pump that would run along the rails all the way up here, and then we could just have the sewer and water expanded this way.
That's that's the Moody's intersection.
No, this is the business park. This is
Oh,
George's.
Yeah,
that's
this-
George's.
This is
Okay.
George's spot right over here.
Okay, sorry.
That's still on the table, and a very similar thing could probably be done with what we're looking at for a different area for industrial work. It's always just going to be a matter of, and that solves the sewer expansion. The thing we'd have to solve is the water. We'd have to find a spot that has an abundant source of water to be part of the town system, or wouldn't need the town water because it has enough there by itself. That makes sense.
It's appropriate to extend sewers to an area that already has water. I mean, they don't have to be like, how do they meter it? I thought that they charged you for your sewer based on how much water you took.
What do you mean?
If a person is on town sewer, are they billed by the gallon, or how do they do it?
I'm not sure. That's something I'd probably have to ask.
I might have dreamed it, but I thought that at one point they billed you for your sewer based on the assumption that if you bought the water from them, that's
They
where you.
do.
Okay.
Yeah, they do. It's water in versus water out. And so they bill people based on water in because they can't measure water out.
So if you brought it to the park, even though I had a great well, it sounds like there would be a problem figuring out what to charge people if they were getting their water from another source.
Well, I'd have to just see about that because, well, and the water also the town water could be extended there as well. If we were to if we're doing a project like that, we would look at both utilities, trying to get them on the same.
I suppose it's in one trench, isn't it? Yeah.
Right. In terms of how much they pay, we would probably check to see all the businesses that are this area, because they're on sewer, but they're not on town water.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, just going to that original point of next areas, that's just something I'm going to have to look at, see where the next big parcel could be, how we can get water there, and see if the gravity pump could work.
Hey, Max, could you move the map further north and west, I guess? Like, I want to see what's above where you're thinking of putting the water, bringing water and sewer.
Oh. So
In other words, is there another property further up that might work?
Further north?
further north, yeah. Towards the school.
Well, towards the school.
He's talking 220, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is 220 over here. I mean, there's options. It's
What's R611?
oh geez, you're making me do this. R611. This one?
Come on.
Yeah,
Not sure. As I say, I don't have the wetland map ready, but I know that a good chunk of this area was in that
those
position. of
wetlands, yeah,
being
I
wetland.
can see a creek down by the boundary line.
yeah.
Yeah, and if I recall, that's Delano's. There is a brook somewhere around here that puts a certain area in the flood zone.
Hmm.
As I
Back
say,
Brook is right there.
Yeah.
Whatever Back Brook is.
yeah, that's the one I think I was talking about. As I say, this is something that I'm just gonna have to look a bit more into, and it might not, maybe the future commercial area is one that could be serviced by sewer, but just not serviced by water. And that might just be what it is in the future.
The good
But
news
I'll-
is we have lots of water in Waldenboro.
That is, yes. From what I've gathered, yes, there's plenty of water.
But, and I think what George is saying is sewer is probably more significant of an upgrade than water would be. So obviously, you wouldn't have to put septics in and things like that. But you could put a town well in whatever location you pick.
Oh, yes, I agree. I thought George was making a joke with all the wetlands that are.
I
in the
I
area.
was actually, that was the silver lining of all these places we can't use, is you can go there and get a bucket of water. But that's the idea.
You don't even have to drill for it, George. Is that right?
That's right, in some places, literally. And actually, down if you happen to ever drive into the business park, right after you've left 32, right down below 32, there's a funny little pond puddly thing. It's about the size of a big station wagon. And one of the fellows tried to pump it out once so we could fill it in with dirt, and it never pumped. It just kept filling back up. It was like an eternal spring. So yeah, a lot of water.
Well, let's not
You should
forget.
bottle that and sell it, George.
Well, it's much easier to find than to sell.
Let's not forget that all those wetlands help protect our river too.
Yes,
Too.
absolutely, yes.
True.
Well,
All
that's
right,
all.
well,
Oh,
so
sorry.
Max, you got some homework to do to find other potential applications for the grant, I guess. Is that where
Well,
we're at?
unfortunately, it means we're probably not going to be able to submit a grant in March because we needed to have an engineering study done and then go to the voters and everything. All
Never
by
happened.
March. We don't really have time to do that.
All right.
As I say, I will talk with Gartley and Dorsey a bit more about just the water expansion to the pump station and talk with the businesses that would be on that strip. Because that could be a project. That would be a far simpler project and an easier one to brag about at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about building a house as a sort of symbol for this whole thing, making Waldenboro this nice big house, one project at a time. And this Route 1 project would have been the first floor. This will just be a nice little wall that would go to it.
Got it.
One brick at a time.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Max. Ruben, do you want to give us a technology update?
Sure. We've in the past, I know it's been a little quiet from the CTC, but we're up to something new. This last Tuesday, I approached the select board and just very simply asked for support to pursue a planning grant for Waldenboro. The scope of this planning grant is to get fiber to every home. And we're scoping it that way because the remaining areas that are unserved, we would have a very low shot at getting grants just to wire those houses. So we're changing tack and going to this plan to, one, get unserved houses wired, but also to create a situation where there is competition in Waldenboro, so people have choices between carriers. As to how this would work, doing this planning grant is going to let us get a price tag that will then let us start to ask and answer additional questions. And I say that to say there's lots of different directions this could go. This is to help us get a number so we can even start thinking about, sort of the next phase. So it's something new. Max, I won't ever stop telling you how happy I am that you're back to help, because I desperately need your brain for this. And that's what we have going on.
Great, awesome. I
A
think
quick
that's
question. My
Go ahead.
quick question that I think I tossed out last time, and it's maybe it's a dumb question. With all of the investment in infrastructure that we're hearing about in the news, is there any way that we should be thinking about that or trying to capture some of it? It seems like there's all kinds of money that comes down from the federal government that doesn't ever get used or doesn't get used by us.
You're on the absolute right track. And this doesn't replace that. This could go anywhere from running in parallel to running in concert with those plans. The grant we're applying for is local. It's through the Island Institute. But
Oh.
before we ask for a grant to deploy that infrastructure, we need to find out what the cost is. And once we start applying for that, that goes to, continuing our conversations with ISPs and seeing who we might partner with. And the reason I phrase it that way, we're very used to just going with, LCI and Charter, the two companies we've worked with. We're being, I guess I'll say careful. We want to give everyone an equal shot. We want to give Waldenboro the best thing it can have. We want to make this a place where, families move here and businesses move here, but it also needs to be sustainable. We're not looking to, waste that grant money or come up with a situation where we recommend someone incur debt for a sort of non-sustainable thing. So when I say that it's really a wide open scope for this grant, this is really just to get a price tag so we can apply that price tag to all these different forms. So right now, nothing is off the table. It's just getting that initial price tag. It's taking that first step.
So what you're talking about is an element of what might be federally fundable. Are there other infrastructure things that we haven't talked about?
Well, yeah.
Go ahead, Max.
Sorry for cutting you off on that, Ruben.
That's fine.
So what Ruben's actually searching for is what I was kind of doing with my Route 1 project, where we need actually an expert or someone to come in and say, this is how much the project's going to cost. And then we take that to the federal government or any government really, who does provide these types of infrastructure grants. And they say, okay, this person said this, we're comfortable giving you that amount. In terms of infrastructure money that's meant for actually building the infrastructure, there are plenty of grants that are going to be coming down the pipeline, no pun intended, that I actually did just see a list of 24 plus grants that local governments could apply for. There's ones for broadband, there's ones for renewable energy programs, like making the schools better for more fuel efficient ones. There's ones for EV charging stations, actually. That's the thing I always kept saying that's going to pop up again.
Are those level 3?
It just says EV charging stations, but I would assume I assume they're anything at this point. It's not like the state that was only limited to level 2.
Okay.
This, I assume, is probably a level 3 one
Cool.
at this point. There is a lot of sewer, water, usual extensions. There's a lot.
Does the road parallel to Route 1 on the north side of Route 1, does that out to the school, does that ever get brought forward as another consideration? The one that goes from the sewage plant up to the water treatment plant up to the school?
Yeah. So about that one, I'm going to talk about wetlands again. So
Thanks.
this is the sewer treatment plant. I don't even think I need, here. I don't even need a wetland map. There is a resource protection area, I believe, that's right through the middle here. So if we were to get a road that goes from Union to Manktown, there is one opening that I know of. I don't have the exact spot of it, but there's one opening somewhere in this area where we could try and feed through a road, but it's something I don't know right off the top of my head. And if we were to do that, we would really need to make sure we're going to do it right. And even then, with what I saw over here, I would assume even if there's an empty spot, there's probably going to be some continuation of some wetlands in that area to fill in the gap.
Just, I'm sorry, but just for perspective, Route 1 goes from Florida to Canada, and it crosses a lot of bodies of water. Did we just stop allowing ourselves to cross water?
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty
well, that
much.
makes sense then.
Yeah. That just happened at some point. Well, it's like
And
Like
I'm
Cameron
not trying to destroy the environment, but it does seem like a kind of a conundrum that we can be so brick walled by what might be 40 feet of problem
well,
or
they give
140 feet.
Well, they give exemptions in certain cases. If we find areas that are at risk of being developed that will preserve, if we're willing to pay the extra permitting fees, we can do that. It's all possible. It's a matter of whether we're willing to pay for it or not. And the other part I'll say for this parallel Route 1 project that we did talk about, as I say, there is an area where we could cut through it, and it's not in the resource protection zone. The problem is going to then be what I said previously is it's going to have the sewer. It's not going to have the water. And that's, I don't know how, well, so there's that one. And then the fact that we're going to be dealing with maybe a dozen or so landowners before we finally get all the way over here.
There's another way to look at that problem, though.
Mm,
We're assuming everything based on the current location of our sewage treatment facility. There's another solution, and that is to build another sewage treatment facility that's located in a better spot and that serves a different territory. And I'm not talking just about Waldenboro here. I'm talking about neighboring towns. Again, it goes back to the regionalization concept.
That might be, with it being 8 o'clock, that might be a conversation for another time. And that's probably going to be part of what part of my research is going to have to be about, seeing new satellite locations for doing it.
Yep.
But
Just very quickly before I forget, among the things that we work on up at the aquaculture parts of our park is cleaning water. And there's some very, very interesting new technologies that have kind of bloomed, and so to speak, in the last 4 or 5 years, where it's small scale ways, and they literally grow algae on a conveyor belt effectively, that's, or like a piece of carpet that goes in and out of the water. And when it comes out the other end, the water's clean because you've grown algae with all the nutrients. But there's technologies on the horizon or here that allow for different scales of water treatment, sewage treatment plants, municipal and aquaculture.
We were working on a project 30 years ago where they were treating effluent and you could drink the product. It was that safe.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time. It's just a matter of figuring out how best to do it.
Yeah. No, and the scaling options, I think, are going to change as some of these technologies evolve.
Yeah. Yes, thinking small isn't bad at all.
well, that's
All
all
right.
I have.
All right, thanks, everyone. Is there any
Very quick
new
update.
business? Oh, sorry, George, go ahead.
Quick
go ahead.
update from the business park.
Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry. George.
Well, no, that's fine. There's the eel grout building is heated to a degree, and they've got most of the cement floor in. The tanks are poured. I mean, the tank includes, the floor includes the tanks and a lot of most of the plumbing. So I think I sent a picture that's really probably not a public picture to several of you from a drone, but I didn't get permission to take the picture, so I didn't want it all over the place. But it's a building full of tanks, and it's going to be amazing.
When do they have a projected startup date yet, George?
I'm sure they do. I don't know what it is, and they're making fairly fast progress. The roof is all insulated panels, the wall are all insulated panels, and they all pop together like tongue and groove boards. It's a pretty amazing building.
Cool.
They're really doing it right, which brings up someday we're going to have TIF money that'll spill off of that, I think.
Yes, we are.
Oh, that actually reminds me. So I'm sorry, this will be very quick. Sincarfa, who is doing the second commercial solar farm in the community off of Controversy Lane, I got the DEP saying that they have approved their decommissioning plan and bond. So those are all their conditions for approval. So that company will be getting the building permit probably soon, and then we'll start their construction. And I'm talking more with the state about seeing if it's beneficial for a town to actually place the solar farm in a TIF district, because that could, well, that would bring in quite a bit of money and then save the town from that valuation. So that was the other quick update I wanted to give.
That farm is even bigger than the one across the street.
Yes. And I think
the power lines have already been upgraded to carry it away.
I don't believe, not on Controversy Lane, I believe.
But on North Noblesboro Road.
Yes, North Noblesboro Road had to have those poles upgraded last year anyways for the one on the Travis Reed property. So
They did that.
yeah,
Yeah.
not a lot of people were happy about that one, but no, the poles are upgraded already. Controversy Lane does need them upgraded, but North Noblesboro Road will not need theirs upgraded. And yeah, with how the TIF currently is right now, I think we'll be able to actually fit that whole solar farm in without removing any properties from our current TIF district. So that would be a very positive thing.
Good.
Still need to go to the voters for approval though. But now I'm done.
For the
All
TIF or for the project itself?
For the TIF,
Okay.
whenever we're doing any amendments to our TIF plan, it has to go to the voters for approval. So if we're adding a property, we need the voters to approve that. If we have to take a property out of it to put this in, we have to have 2 votes. Could be the same night so that we could allow that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. 80, whatever it is, 7.
All right, so any new business? Any old business? All right, so thank you, everyone. I